The sun slid low over the Arizona cliffs, carving long shadows across the dry earth as Luke Marston guided his tired mule, smoke trail toward the edge of Apache territory, not expecting that his quiet evening ride would turn into a story the desert would whisper for generations. He'd been a rancher all his life, a man whose integrity had been tested as harshly as the land he lived upon. Yet nothing, no drought, no rustler, no gunfight, prepared him for what he found that day. Two Apache girls, barely more than teenagers, crouched behind a crumbling outcrop of stone, trembling, barefoot, and clutching each other as if the world had already tried to tear them apart, their dark eyes wide with fear and desperation, the kind that makes a man's instincts rise before sense does. Luke halted Smoke Trail and stepped down slowly, raising his hands to show he carried no threat. And as the wind carried the scent of juniper and dust, he heard their panicked breaths and saw their hands shaking. Over a single rusted knife, more, a symbol of last hope than a weapon. He spoke gently, the way one speaks to a frightened colt, telling them he meant no harm, that he'd spent years trading near their village, that he recognized the beadwork on their dresses and the tribe's markings that wrapped delicately around their wrists. Slowly, hesitantly, they lowered the knife. In broken English and whispered Apache, they forced out their story. A band of outlaw riders had passed through the canyon, taking hostages, burning their father's camp, and leaving them on foot with no water, no food, and no chance of reaching their people before nightfall. When the cold in this part of the desert turned deadly, worse, their father, the war chief, a stern but honorable man, would return by sunset searching for them. And if he found them missing, he'd go hunting for answers with rage that could spark bloodshed across the whole region. Luke felt the weight of the choice tightening his chest. Smoke Trail, his oldest and strongest mule, carried supplies he needed to make it back to his ranch. But these girls, these frightened, exhausted sisters, needed that mule far more, needed his help more than he needed comfort. And so, without hesitation, he placed his hands on the mule's reins, looked into Smoke Trail's gentle eyes, and whispered an apology. Because he knew giving the mule away wasn't just giving up an animal, it was giving away a partner, a friend, and a lifeline out here where the nights could kill a man quicker than a bullet. He guided the sisters to the mule's sturdy back, shoved supplies into their hands, and pointed them toward the canyon trail that led back to their people, urging them to ride fast, ride steady, and trust the animal to carry them to safety. The elder sister, voice cracking, asked why he would do such a thing for strangers, and Luke simply replied that the desert was no place to lose good souls. That kindness carried farther than bullets ever did. They rode off with teary eyes, vanishing into the glowing dust as the last ribbon of sunlight bled across the horizon. But when Luke turned to walk home alone, 5 miles of harsh terrain with only a canteen and his worn boots, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Fresh hoof prints in the sand. Far too many for a peaceful patrol. Someone had been watching. Maybe the same outlaws, maybe something worse. And as the sky darkened into a deep copper red, Luke realized he might have just ignited a conflict he wasn't sure he could outrun. And somewhere far in the distance, carried on the wind, came the faint, rising war cry of an Apache chief returning early, returning with fury in his heart. To all my viewers who live for gripping Wild West legends like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because Chapter 2 is where everything explodes, where the father arrives, where the truth comes out, and where Luke must face the consequences of the choice he made before sunset.